Right, good evening. Today we're learning Maseches Bava Basra, Daf Kufnan Gimel, and we are in the middle of a sugya of what happens if we have two things happening at the same time. We have a person on his deathbed, and therefore that which he does is begeder matnas shchib meira. But in this particular case, and we're piggybacking on the last case on the bottom of Kufnan Beis Mebez, he also had a kinyan going on. So Shmuel had this very, very odd language at the bottom of the page, and he said, "Ein achar kinyan klum," that after the kinyan there's nothing. So Savar Mina, this is where we're starting on the top of Kufnan Gimel Amud Aleph. One Havamina here was Hani Mili La'acher, is that if after the kinyan he wanted to give it to somebody else, he's not allowed to repurpose that gift. Aval La'atzmo lo, but that's not true of himself, namely, that if he heals, he can then get his own kinyan back. So Shmuel seems to kind of be saying, like, it's okay if you're Amad and you get it back. You just can't say, in the Matna Shchime Rafez, I'm giving it to Ruvain and then change it to Shimon. You're not allowed to give it to Shimon. But if you're Amad, if he gets healed, then he can keep it. Amar Lahu Rav Chizda, that's really not correct, because Ki Aser Rav Huna Mikufri, Pirsha, he explained to us as follows: Bein la'atzmo, bein la'acherim. No matter what, once that kinyan is made, it is a done deal. And he is, of course, reflecting on the shita on the bottom of the page of Shmuel. So now we had two possible ways to understand Shmuel's line. Shmuel's line on the bottom of the page was that if we have a matna shchimera coupled with a kinyan, ein achar kinyan klum. What does that mean? Does it mean only in as much as you can't repurpose to a new person? It says the Gemara, no. In the name of Rav Chizda, bein la'atzmo, bein la'acherim, no matter what, once that first kinyan is made, when the shchiv meira makes his gift with a kinyan, the whole conversation is short and over. And therefore, no retracting. Ein la'achar a kinyan klum means categorically that once that kinyan is made to Ruvain, to person number one, you are done for. Says the Gemara story. Ahu de kanumine. There was a person who did this kinyan with a matna shchiv meira, and also the kame de Rav Huna. So they went in front of Rav Huna. Amar, mai yavid lach. What do you want me to do? Delo iknis kidimaknu inshe. You didn't do your matna shchiv meira like a normal person. You made it like an extra kinyan. Now you're coming to me crying that you made a mistake. You made a mistake. You did your matna shchimera coupled with a kinyan. You're done. You can't get it back, even if you're amad. That's what the case. The shchimera was the one who was asking this shaila. Rabbi Shlita, I want to get my money back. It was a matna shchimera. I should get it back. So he said, no, because you did a kinyan. You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done that. What about an iteration of this? Hahu masnasa, the Havakasuba, there was a matna shchimera, and this matana, it said about it, b'chaim uvemoves. So what happens if the Mana Shrimera has this additional lashon of B'chaim Uvemavas? This is a machloka samurai. Kufnun Gimel Amud Aleph, 6 lines down. Rav Amar Harei Kematna Shrimera. The language of B'chaim Uvemavas is still begeder Matna Shrimera. Ushmuel Amar Harei Kematnas Bari. And Shmuel says, no, it's really begeder matnas bari. My nafkamina. Matnas shchimera is kona in the first case, but you can be choser if you're amad if you get better. And matnas bari has no chazar; it's a regular kinyan. So let's try and understand more deeply what each shita holds. Rav amar hareke matnas shchimera. How does Rav explain this? Midichsi ba b'maves achar misa ka'amar lei. So he said b'chaim u'b'maves because he included the word b'maves. The haraya that we must be talking about achar misa kamarle. And why did it then say b'chaim uvemabes? You can't just you can't just pick the words you want, Rob. Like if it says b'maves only, okay, I could understand. So if you want to say that the ikar word is b'maves, then why did he say b'chaim? B'chaim simon be'alma d'chaim. It's just a sign to say that you want to live. That's what we say all the time. L'chaim should be a l'chaim tov m'lishon. So the word b'chaim is an irrelevant word, and the word b'maves is the ikar word according to Rav. So therefore, if a matna shchimera was coupled with the language of b'maves, b'chaim b'maves, we say it's a regular shchimera. Ushmuel, our third of the way down, he says no. Harei kematnas bari. That really, if a person were to be a shchimera and his matna shchimera was given with the words b'chaim b'maves, it's really the din of a bari. Midichsiv, what word does Shmuel focus on? Midichsiv ba b'chaim. Mechaim kamar. Pashat is talking about living. So when a person makes a kinyan when they're alive, and they're not dying, that's not a matnas chimera, that's a matnas barisa. That's what Shmuel says. But then the obvious question is, just like we asked against Rav, you can't just pick the word you want to focus on. Shmuel picked on the word mavis, and we touched up why he said the word chaim. Now we have to do the same thing to Shmuel. What did Shmuel say? Shmuel says chaim is the ikar word, mechaim kamer. Oh, so why does it say ubemaves? So it says the Gemara, v'hai de kosav ubemaves kimand amar me'atav ad olam. In life and in death, meaning from now until forever. But really, the ikar lashon is chaim, and therefore, in a case where a matnas chimera is coupled with the language of b'chaim ubemaves, you are considered to be a matnas bari, and there's no chazar. How do we pasken? Amrei nahar doim. We hold like Rav, that if a person were to be a shchiv meira, and his mana shchiv meira was coupled with the words be'chaim uvemaves, we treat him like a shchiv meira, and then all the relevant halachos apply. Amar Rava v'ikasa b'mechayim kana. If it doesn't say b'chaim, but it says mechayim kana, namely, he's disagreeing with Rav. Omar Ameimar, Leisilchasa Kava, say the Rava. We don't paskin like Rava. So says the Gemara, thank you very much, Captain Obvious. We just said a second ago that we paskin like Rav. Rava lived 2.5, 3 generations after Rav. There was no way on planet Earth that Rava would ever do such a thing. So says the Gemara, Omar Le Ravashi La'ameimar Pshita, Ha'amri Nardai, Hilchsak Va, say the Rav. So Mehecha Tesi that Rava should ever be right. So says the Gemara, the reason why we needed the statement of Ameimar that Leis Hilchas Hakavase the Rava was because there was a Havamina here that we needed to preclude. Maudatema Mechayim, that if it's Mechayim instead of Bachayim, Modi Rav, that perhaps Rav would have admitted that this is no longer Begeder Shchiv Meira, but now it's Begeder Matnas Bari, Kamash Malon, that the difference of Mechayim and Bachayim is 0. And Rav is halacha l'maisa. This is seemingly how we paskin in Shulchan Aruch. This is quoted in Choshen Mishpat Reish Nun Aleph, that if a person is a shchiv meira and his matnas shchiv meira is given coupled with the language of b'chaim uvamavis or mechaim uvamavis, both of those cases we paskin like Rav, that is a matnas shchiv meira, in which case it's binding. Yet if he is amad, if he does heal, then he is choser. There was a man who came to Rav Nachman in Naharda. Naharda was a city that Shmuel lived in. And our case over here was a case with a star that said B'chaim uvamavis. It doesn't say that in the Gemara, but the Rishonim explained that that's what's going on in this case. And what did Rav Nachman, who lived in Naharda, do? Shadre lekamid Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba l'shum tamya. He said, don't ask me the shaila. I'm going to send you to another posek who lives in another city. We were in Naharda. Naharda is Asrei de Shmuel. Omar Hacha Asrei de Shmuel. What Rav Nachman said to this Yid is, you're standing in Naharda. Naharda is Shmuel land. We don't paskin like Shmuel, but in Shmuel city, in the Shtad, we paskin like Shmuel if you're here. But I don't want you to do that. I want you to move somewhere else, because in Shmuel's property, in Shmuel's town, Hechi Navid Kavasei Derab. So this actually is a real true story. We actually see this sometimes in Psak Halacha. There was a woman who had a very complicated shaila about whether or not she was actually divorced from her first husband, based on a kasha whether or not she was actually married in the first place. So she wasn't so frum. She got married on an army base, and there was never a get given, and she wanted to get remarried. So if she got married and there was no get, you're an ish. But if you never got married, then you didn't need a get. So they were trying to build what's called a svek sveka, suffix that you were married in the first place. And even if you were married, maybe you had a get, you just don't remember. Okay, whatever the demon was. The problem is they went to an Ashki, they went to Rav Moshe Feinstein. And the Ashkenazim have a psak that we do not make our own svek svekas. The only psakim that we can rely upon as it relates to svek sveka are svek svekas that are found in Shas. However, the Svardim hold that you can make up your own svek svekas. Rav Moshe Feinstein said, please go see Rav Avaja Yosef. Shalom, get out of here. They asked the Shalish Rav Avaja Yosef, and he said, svek sveka, suffix that you were married, and he allowed her to marry someone. So he was able to override an Eshes Ish Din based on a svek sveka, which is absolutely wild. And just like we see over here in the Gemara, that Rav Nachman had the wherewithal to say, don't ask me, Go down the block to the next Amora, to Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, who lives outside of Shmuel. Go ask Rav Ovadia. Ki'ilu, it's the same thing. So these are already some of the nuances of like methodologies of psak in our era, where we know that Ashkenazim do not generate their own sfek-svekas. Fascinating. Says the Gemara, we're 2/3 of the way down. He de asoy lekame de Rava. Someone brought a shaila in front of Rava. And that was what we were talking about earlier. Remember Rava's shita that he said Mechayim is kana. And that's what was going on here. And Avale Rava Kishmaise. Rava really didn't agree with Rav, which is, I guess he's allowed. It just feels weird. But he's allowed, he's an Amor. So says the Gemara, he paskin like himself to say that what happened when this woman was a shchiv meira was binding, because it said Mechayim. And Rava holds the Mechayim is kana, which means she couldn't get her money back from her statements as a shchiv meira, because he doesn't view it as a matnas shchiv meira. Once they added in Mechayim, now it's a matnas bari, and there's no chazara even if she heals. And Hava katir dole, she wanted to get the kula. Rava wasn't having it, and she kept cheppering him. She was bothering him. So tir dole. So Amar Leila Rav Papa Bered Rav Chanan Safre. He said to his sofer, whose name was Rav Papa Bered Rav Chanan, go write Zil Kasuv, go write her a document, but add in the following line: B'Kasuv Ba Socher Alein Omita. We're not going to get into this now, but this basically is a line that would tell any other bezdin that this document is a zero, and she picked up on it. Amra, I know what you're doing. She was a Talmud Chacham. She knew about the nuances of shtaros.
She was the one who made the gift, and she wants to take it back.
Right, but she said Mechaim, and Rava holds that Mechaim is kana. It's not a matnas shchiv, now it's a matnas bari, and Rava wasn't having it. So when Rava gave the machmer psak, she kept bothering him. So he wrote up this, shtar just to get her off his back, but she gave him a klala. Amra litba arbe, your ship should sink. At uye kam matisli. Are you really trying to trick me? I'm holding in Hilchos Shtaros, which, by the way, that's pretty spitz. That's pretty impressive to know this type of nuance in halachos of Shtaros at a time when it was not standard at all for women to learn like this. Women don't learn like this now either, for the most part. To learn every nuance of Shtaros, it's very rare. I can tell you, we've all together, you've learned Shas many times. We would not have known. We would not have known.
I suspect he's standing in the basement looking lost.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, we'd be like, she's our new rabbi. We would have been like, the Mizrach is open. Yeah.
Completely unfamiliar to me.
Yeah. But she was holding. And the people who were standing around Rava were concerned, because when people say things, they can sometimes carry weight. So what they did is they actually did the following. Shinhu lemane de Rava b'maya. They soaked his clothes in water to try and fulfill the gzera that she created with her words. But nevertheless, v'afilu hachi lo ifrak mitiva. It didn't help, and he actually had one of his boats sink, which is terrifying, by the way. I mean, I don't know if this happens in our generation. I don't think this is Ayin Hara. I think this is like Yatzimi Pi Hashalit, like that line we see in Shas, that when somebody says something, it actually has a power. So I don't know how powerful we are, but I would imagine we should just be careful if we have the opportunity.
Helps you kill us Hedjot Kalave now. So
Yeah.
I don't know if we're even Hedjotos, but if we are.
She wasn't a Hedjot.
It's true, by the way,
Yeah.
but
We're Hedjotos, yeah.
It was a physical shit that sank, or he paid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe.
Okay, new Mishnah, 6 lines from the bottom of Kuf Nun Gimel Amud Aleph. Says the Mishnah, Lo kasa b'shchimera. Let's say that there was a shtar, and it was given over when she was sick or when he was sick, but they forgot to put in the fact that this person was a shchimera. That's problematic. Hu Omer, when he was there, he said, "Guys, that was shchimera hayisi. When I wrote that, I was on my last breaths. I didn't know I was going to survive. V'hein omrim bari hayisa." And who is the burden of proof upon? Says the Gemara, Tzarech lahavi raya sheshchiv me rahaya de Rav Meir. This is a fascinating machlokas tanaim. because we know the next sheet is almost more reasonable. Let's get the case super clear. Man's on his deathbed. He says, I hereby give you 1,000 acres. Then he heals. He gets better. And he says, all right, shchimera, but I'm amad, so give me my property back. They said, no, you did. There was no shchimera in your documentation. If he would have said the words, by the way, he would have been a shchimera. But the fact that he wrote it down was the complicated part. So now they bring the shtar to Bezdin. And who's the burden of proof upon? According to Rav Meir, the person who needs to bring the proof to get his money back is the shchimera. This is a version of hamotzi mechavero al baraya, right? The Chachamim omrim, no, hamotzi mechavero al baraya. That the other people are the motzi. So it's kind of like, which version of hamotzi mechavero are you actually going to be focusing on? Hahu masnasa, there was a matna shchimera, to have a kasuba, where only part of what was normal to write was there. Karav a katzir v'rami ba'arse, when a person was katzir, they were short on life, they were about to die. And they were rami ba'arse, they were lying in bed. But velo kasaba, they didn't then add in what is typically added after a person dies, which is umigu mare iftar lebes olmei, that because of his illness, he ended up being niftar and going to the next world. So there was, again, similar to our Mishnah, where only part of what was there, what was supposed to be there, was there. So Amar Rabba says, no, hare meis, hare kivro mochiachalo. What do we see from here? If in fact the guy died and he's buried 6 feet under, so okay, so he left out the line that he died. After he died, nobody filled in the gaps to say that, yeah. But he's dead. So maybe we have to assume that he was a shchimera. That makes sense, says Rabbah. Amar le Abaye, I disagree with you entirely. Hashta, now that we know that the following is true. Uma sfina sheruban le'abed. Just like in a case where there's a boat, where if a boat capsizes, we assume that ruban le'abed. And even though that's true, that most people die when a boat capsizes, the Titanic, whatever, still, nosnin alav chomrei chayim v'chomrei mesin. So that means, let's talk about aguna. Rachmana litzlan, a man is lost at sea. They found the boat capsized. You're not pater from aguna. She's still trapped. Because in those cases, even though it's ruban la'abed, we still say nosnin alem chomrei chayim v'chomrei mesin. It's also true by truma. Right? If a person's husband is dead and that was her only access, she'd still be besafek of nosnin alein chomrei chaim chomrei mesim. So if that's true, says the Gemara, cholen sherov cholen l'chaim lo kol shekein. Rabba, how can you say that we're just going to say it's as though he's dead? Because in most cases they actually live. Some Rav Huna brother Rabbi Yeshua, kaman asla hashmaitza shmaisa de Rabba. How do we understand the sheet of Rabbah? That is Kirib Nosad. The Gemara says a third of the way down on Kufnid Gimel Amud Beis that Rabbah in our Gemara is like Rib Nosad in the following brisa, the Tanya. Mi motzi miyad mi. Who takes things out of whose hands? Who motzi miyadehen below raya? Behain ein motzi miyado el beraya dibi Rabbi Yaakov. That it has to be that he can take out of their possessions with no proof, but they cannot take out of his possessions with proof. And Rabbi Nasan Omer, im barihu, all of the Havi Raya Shchimera. If now in the moment this person is alive and well, it is upon him to bring the raya. That's Rabbah's line at the top of the page. Brother, you're standing here alive and well. Like, you didn't die. So then everything should be fine. So and then im Shchimera hu alein Havi Raya Shebari Haya. If he was in fact a Shchimera, so then he has to bring a proof. So basically, there's a machlokas going on here between, do we go basar hashta, when we're making difficult decisions? Do we look at what's happening right now, or do we go after the pre-existing chazaka? And the Gemara says that Amar Rebbe Lazar, we have the same exact machlokas of basar hashta versus basar chazaka in the following case. Amar Rebbe Lazar ulatuma kemachlokas. We have a little bit of a girsa change here. Berov Rishonim, it says le'inyan tuma. Le'inyan tuma kemachlokas. Titznan. Bika, we have a valley. Now this valley, according to the Tanakama, is treated differently during certain parts of the year. Bimos hachama, when it's in the summer, we treat it as a rishus hayachid l'Shabbos. It's obviously a bika that has walls around it. Rishus harabim latuma. But as it relates to Rishus harabim, you're right, there's a wall around it. But as it relates to Safek Tuma Rishus harabim, we would be lenient. But b'mosag shamim, during the winter months, Rishus hayachid lekan ulekan. So it says the Gemara, this is where we could see this idea. We just are looking, are we saying that it's hashta, right? And the bika b'mosag chama, we're looking hashta, and b'mosag shamim, it's the chazaka. And Omar Rava, lo shanu ela shelo avru alav yimosag shamim. Aval avru alav yimosag shamim, rishus hayachid lekan ulekan. Once we get to that point of yimosag shamim, then the rishus hayachid is going to be considered rishus hayachid even for the sake of tuma. And again, we see the same idea of basar hashta versus basar chazaka, and that is what Rabba and Abaye are arguing about at the top of this page, and that is where we are going to be stopping tonight. In Mirza Hashem, tomorrow night, we will be picking up from the bottom of Kufnin Gimel Amud Beis, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Shabbos, I will be out of town. Mirza Hashem will be back on Sunday. I'll be back on Sunday for that week, and then December 8th, Mirza Hashem, I'm going out of town for 9 days to Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Handler will take over. We will stop right here. Wishing you all a beautiful night.